Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the planet grow larger on the main screen. Valthara Prime looked like a giant jewel floating in space with its blue oceans and silver cities that sparkled under three suns. This was the most important mission of his career, and he knew it. The future of humanity in the galaxy might depend on what happened in the next few days. The ship Horizon's Edge had traveled for 6 months to reach this distant world. Jake commanded a crew of 30 people, but only a few would go down to the planet's surface. The Valthari Empire was one of the most powerful forces in known space, and they did not trust easily. Getting this meeting had taken 2 years of careful messages back and forth. Lisa Grant walked up beside him and looked at the planet, too. She was the cultural expert on his team and had spent years studying everything known about the Valthari people. Her job was to make sure Jake did not accidentally insult anyone or break some important rule. The Valthari were known for their strict ways and ancient traditions. "Remember, Jake, the formal greeting must be done exactly right," Lisa said softly. "They bow 3 times and speak the ritual words. If we mess this up, they might send us away before we even start talking about trade." Jake nodded. He had practiced the greeting hundreds of times, but he was still nervous. Humans were new to this part of space, and most alien races looked down on them. The Valthari had technology that was thousands of years ahead of Earth. They could travel between stars in days while human ships took months. Their weapons could destroy entire fleets, and their shields could stop any attack humans could make. But the Valthari needed something too. Their empire was vast, but they had few friends. Most other races feared them or stayed away from their space. Humans were different. They were not afraid, and they were eager to trade and learn. If this meeting went well, both races could benefit. The communication system made a soft sound, and a voice spoke in perfect English. "Human vessel, you are cleared to land at the Royal Palace complex. Follow the guide beam and do not deviate from the assigned path." Jake took the ship down through the atmosphere carefully. The guide beam led them over cities that looked like they were made of crystal and metal. Tall spires reached up toward the sky, and flying vehicles moved between them like schools of fish. Everything was clean and organized and beautiful in a way that made human cities look rough and primitive. The royal palace was the size of a small city by itself. It sat on a hill overlooking the capital and was surrounded by gardens that stretched for miles. The main building was a massive pyramid made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow with its own light. Smaller buildings were arranged around it in perfect patterns. Jake landed the ship in the designated area and shut down the engines. He put on his best uniform and checked his appearance one more time. Lisa wore formal clothes too and carried a bag with gifts from Earth. They had brought samples of human art and music and food as symbols of friendship. 6 guards met them at the landing pad. The Valthari were tall and thin with pale skin that had a slight shimmer to it. Their eyes were large and completely black, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost like dancing. They wore flowing robes and carried weapons that hummed with energy. The guards led Jake and Lisa through gardens filled with plants that seemed to glow and sing. The path was made of smooth stones that felt warm under their feet. Other Valthari stopped their work to stare at the humans as they passed. Most seemed curious, but some looked suspicious or afraid. The throne room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. The walls were covered with murals that showed the history of the Valthari Empire. Thousands of years of conquest and achievement were displayed in glowing colors that seemed to move and change as Jake watched. King Zephan Kithara sat on a throne made from a single piece of black crystal. He was even taller than the other Valthari and wore robes that sparkled with tiny lights like stars. His presence filled the room, and Jake could feel the power radiating from him. This was a being who ruled over hundreds of worlds and billions of subjects. The formal greeting went perfectly. Jake and Lisa bowed 3 times and spoke the ritual words in the Valthari language. King Zephan responded with the traditional welcome and gestured for them to rise. "So far so good. Welcome to Valthara Prime Humans," the king said in a voice that seemed to echo from everywhere at once. "We are curious to learn more about your young race." Tonight we will feast together, and tomorrow we will discuss matters of trade and alliance. The feast was held in another enormous room with tables that could seat hundreds. The Valthari nobility came dressed in their finest clothes and jewelry. They were all beautiful in an otherworldly way, but they kept their distance from the humans and spoke in whispers among themselves. Jake noticed something strange during the meal. At a table near the king sat a young woman who had to be the princess. She was more beautiful than any of the others, with silver hair that seemed to float around her head and skin that glowed like moonlight. But while everyone else ate the elaborate dishes that were served, she barely touched her food. Princess Lirale Kithara picked at a small bowl of gray paste and occasionally sipped from a cup of clear liquid. She looked thin and weak compared to the other Valthari. Her glow was dim and her movements seemed forced, as if every gesture cost her great effort. Jake watched as servants brought plate after plate of beautiful food to her table. There were fruits that looked like jewels and meats that smelled incredible and pastries that seemed to be works of art. But the princess pushed them all away and returned to her bowl of paste. Lisa noticed too and leaned close to whisper, "Something is wrong with the princess. Look how thin she is compared to the others." King Zephan saw them watching and his expression grew sad. "My daughter has a condition that makes most food dangerous for her. She survives on basic nutrients, but she cannot enjoy the pleasures of eating like the rest of us. It is my greatest sorrow to watch her suffer." The princess looked up at that moment and her eyes met Jake's across the room. In them he saw not just physical hunger, but a deeper longing for something she had never been able to have. The look lasted only a moment, but it changed everything for Jake. Suddenly the trade negotiations seemed less important than helping this young woman who was slowly wasting away in the middle of plenty. The feast continued for hours, but Jake could not stop thinking about Princess Lirale. He had an idea forming in his mind, but it was crazy and dangerous. Going against diplomatic protocol could ruin everything. But sometimes the right thing to do was not the safe thing to do. Jake Morrison was about to make a decision that would change the course of history for both humans and Valthari. The feast ended near midnight, but Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the sad look in Princess Lirale's eyes and the way she had pushed away all that beautiful food. Lisa found him standing on the balcony of their guest quarters looking out at the glowing city below. "You have that look, Jake," she said. "The same one you had when you decided to rescue those colonists from the pirates. What crazy idea are you thinking about now?" Jake turned to face her. "What if we could help the princess? What if human food might work for her when Valthari food does not?" Lisa shook her head. "That is way beyond our mission parameters. We are here to negotiate trade agreements, not play doctor to alien royalty. Besides, what if we make her condition worse? We could start a war," but Jake had made up his mind. "I'm going to ask for a private meeting with the princess tomorrow. The worst they can do is say no." The next morning Jake made his requests through the proper channels. The Valthari court officials were shocked by such a breach of protocol. Humans did not request private audiences with royal family members. They debated for hours while Jake waited nervously. Finally, King Zephan himself sent word that he would allow the meeting. His love for his daughter outweighed diplomatic tradition. He was desperate enough to try anything that might help her, Princess. Lirale met Jake in a small garden within the palace complex. Up close he could see how truly ill she was. Her skin had a gray tint despite its natural glow, and she moved slowly as if every step required great effort. But her eyes were bright with intelligence and curiosity. "My father says you think you might be able to help me," she said in perfect English. Her voice was soft and musical but weak. "I have been sick my whole life. Our best doctors and scientists have tried everything. What makes you think humans might succeed where they have failed?" Jake sat down on a stone bench near a fountain that made gentle music as the water flowed. "Tell me about your condition, Princess. What exactly happens when you eat regular Valthari food?" Princess Lirale sat down too, but kept some distance between them. "My body cannot process the complex proteins in our traditional foods. They make me violently ill and could eventually kill me. I survive on synthesized nutrients, but they provide no pleasure and barely enough energy to function. What about simpler foods? Jake asked. Has anyone ever tried giving you something with basic molecular structures? The princess looked confused. What do you mean? All food has complex structures. That is what makes it nutritious. Jake smiled. Not all food, princess. On Earth, we have many simple foods that are still very nutritious. Bread made from grain. And water. Fruits that are mostly sugar and water. Vegetables that are easy to digest. Maybe your system could handle these things when it cannot handle more complex Valthari proteins. Hope flickered in the princess's eyes, but she tried to hide it. Even if that were true, the king would never allow me to eat alien food. What if it poisoned me? What if your human bacteria made me sicker? What if it helped you? Jake countered. What if for the first time in your life you could eat real food and enjoy it? Would it not be worth the risk? Princess Lirley was quiet for a long time. She watched the fountain and seemed to be thinking hard. Finally, she spoke. I will ask. My father, but if he says yes and your food makes me worse, I will hold you responsible. King Zephan listened to Jake's proposal with growing interest. His court advisors were horrified and spoke against allowing such an experiment. They worried about contamination and diplomatic incidents and what other races would think, but the king had watched his daughter waste away for 20 years. He had tried every treatment and consulted every expert in the empire. Nothing had worked. His beautiful, brilliant daughter was dying slowly, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. I will allow this, he said finally. But it will be done under controlled conditions with our best doctors monitoring everything. If the human food harms my daughter, I will hold your entire race responsible. Jake felt the weight of that threat, but he also felt excitement. This could work. He had a good feeling about it. They set up the experiment in a small kitchen attached to the medical wing of the palace. Lisa came to help and brought some basic ingredients from their ship's food stores. The Valthari doctors attached monitoring devices to the princess and stood ready to intervene if anything went wrong. Jake decided to start with the simplest thing he could think of: bread, just flour and water and a little salt mixed together, and baked until golden. As the smell of baking bread filled the kitchen, Princess Lirley's eyes grew wide. What is that wonderful smell? She asked. It makes my mouth water in a way I have never experienced before. That is fresh bread, princess, Jake said as he pulled the loaf from the oven. One of humanity's oldest and most basic foods. He cut a slice and spread a little butter on it, then offered it to her. The princess looked at the bread like it might bite her, but she was curious too. She took a tiny piece and put it in her mouth. The change was immediate and dramatic. Princess Lirley's eyes went wide and she made a small sound of pleasure. She chewed slowly, savoring every bite, then swallowed. The monitoring devices showed normal readings, no negative reactions. More, she whispered. Please, may I have more? Jake gave her the rest of the slice and watched as she ate it with obvious joy. For the first time since they had arrived, he saw her smile, a real, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. How do you feel, princess? Asked the chief doctor. I feel wonderful, she said. My stomach feels satisfied instead of empty, and there is no pain at all. The flavor was incredible. I never knew food could taste like that. Encouraged by this success, Jake prepared something a little more complex. Vegetable soup made with carrots and potatoes and herbs from their hydroponic gardens. The smell made the princess lean forward eagerly. She ate the entire bowl without stopping. Tears ran down her face as she experienced real hunger satisfaction for the first time in her life. The doctors were amazed. All their readings showed normal, healthy digestion. This is impossible, one of them muttered. Her system should reject any foreign proteins. But somehow these human foods are being processed normally. King Zephan arrived to check on the experiment and found his daughter eating soup and laughing. It was a sound he had not heard in years. Princess Lirley looked up at him with bright eyes and a face that already seemed less gaunt. Father, the human food is wonderful, she said. I can eat it without pain, and it tastes better than anything I ever imagined. Captain Morrison has given me something I thought I would never have. The king looked at Jake with something approaching wonder. How is this possible? Our greatest minds could not solve this problem, but you humans have done it in a single day. Jake shrugged. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones, Your Majesty. Human food may be less sophisticated than Valthari cuisine, but that might be exactly what the princess needs. Word of the miracle spread quickly through the palace. Servants whispered about the human who had made the princess eat. Nobles came to see for themselves if the rumors were true. By evening, the entire court knew that Princess Lirelei had consumed more food in one day than she normally ate in a week. As Jake returned to his quarters that night, he felt a deep satisfaction. They had come here to negotiate trade deals, but they had accomplished something much more important. They had given hope to a dying girl and joy to a grieving father. Whatever happened with the political negotiations, this day had been a success. Princess Lirelei fell asleep that night with a full stomach for the first time in her life. She dreamed of bread and soup and the kind human who had opened up a whole new world of possibilities for her. King Zaphon called an emergency session of the royal court for the next morning. Word had spread throughout the palace about the miracle food that the humans had given to Princess Lirelei. Some courtiers were excited while others were suspicious. Change did not come easily to the ancient Valthari Empire. Jake stood before the assembled nobles, feeling nervous but determined. Princess Lirelei sat beside her father's throne, looking better than she had since their arrival. Her skin had more color and her eyes were brighter. The simple bread and soup had already begun to restore her health. Members of the court, King Zaphon announced. Yesterday we witnessed something that our greatest scientists said was impossible. The human captain has found foods that my daughter can eat without pain or illness. Today we will test this discovery further. Some of the older nobles muttered disapproval. Lord Vexler stepped forward with a deep frown. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. We know nothing about these alien foods or their long-term effects. Should we risk the princess's life on the whims of these primitive creatures? Princess Lirelei spoke up before her father could respond. Lord Vexler, I have been dying slowly my entire life. Yesterday I felt truly alive for the first time. If there's a chance that human food can save me, should we not explore it? The king raised his hand for silence. The decision is made. Captain Morrison will prepare a full meal using human foods while our doctors monitor everything. We will see if yesterday was luck or if these foods can truly help my daughter. Jake had requested help from his ship, and now Danny Walsh, the cook, and Dr. Helen Carter, the nutritionist, stood beside him. They had brought supplies for a complete human meal and were ready to demonstrate the variety of Earth's cuisine. They set up in the main kitchen of the palace under the watchful eyes of dozens of Valthari servants and officials. The alien cooks had never seen human food preparation methods before, and they crowded around to observe every step. We will start with breakfast foods, Jake explained. Simple, nutritious items that humans eat at the beginning of each day. Danny cracked eggs into a hot pan and began scrambling them with butter. The smell filled the kitchen, and Princess Lirelei moved closer with obvious interest. She had never seen eggs cooked this way before. What are those? She asked, pointing at the fluffy yellow mixture. Scrambled eggs, Princess, Danny said with a smile. Protein from bird eggs mixed with dairy fat and cooked gently. Very simple, but very nutritious. While the eggs cooked, Helen prepared fresh fruit. She sliced strawberries and arranged them with pieces of apple and orange on a beautiful plate. The colors were brighter than any Valthari fruit, and the princess stared at them in fascination. Jake made pancakes from flour and milk and eggs, mixed into a batter, then cooked on a flat griddle. He served them hot with butter and syrup made from tree sap. The sweet smell made everyone in the kitchen lean forward with curiosity. Princess Lirelei tried each item carefully while the doctors watched their instruments. The eggs made her close her eyes with pleasure. The fruit brought a smile to her lips as the sweet juice ran down her chin. But the pancakes with syrup made her actually laugh out loud with joy. Father, you must try this, she called to the king. The sweetness is incredible. I never knew food could bring such happiness. King Zaphon approached cautiously and took a small bite of pancake. his eyes widened with surprise. This is unlike anything in our cuisine, so simple, yet so satisfying. The morning meal was a complete success. Princess Lirale ate more than she normally consumed in 3 days and showed no ill effects. In fact, she seemed to be gaining energy and strength with each bite. For lunch, Jake decided to introduce pasta. He boiled water and cooked thin noodles, then served them with a simple tomato sauce made from vegetables and herbs. The princess had never encountered this combination of textures before. "How do I eat this?" she asked, looking at the long strands. With confusion, Lisa showed her how to twirl the pasta around a fork. Princess Lirale's first attempt was clumsy, but she quickly got the idea. Soon she was eating with enthusiasm and even making jokes about the sauce on her chin, the Valthari. Nobles watched in amazement as their princess transformed before their eyes. She was laughing and talking more than she had in years. Her movements became more graceful as her strength returned. The gray tint to her skin was fading and being replaced by a healthy glow. Dr. Carter monitored everything carefully and took notes. "The princess's digestive system is processing these foods perfectly," she reported. "Her nutrient absorption is actually better with human food than with the synthetic supplements she was using before. How is this possible?" asked the chief Valthari doctor. "Our food science is far more advanced than anything humans have developed," Helen smiled. "Sometimes advanced is not better, doctor. The princess's condition requires simple, easily digested proteins and carbohydrates. Human food evolved to be simple because we developed on a world with limited resources. What you see as primitive, we see as efficient." For dinner, Jake prepared what he considered the ultimate test: grilled chicken breast with roasted vegetables and rice. This was a complete meal with protein, fat, and carbohydrates that would really challenge the princess's system. The chicken was seasoned with herbs and cooked over an open flame. The vegetables included carrots, potatoes, and green beans roasted until tender. The rice was simple white grains steamed until fluffy. Together they created a meal that looked and smelled incredible. Princess Lirale approached this feast with reverence. She understood that this was the real test of whether human food could truly save her life. She cut a piece of chicken and chewed it slowly. The flavor exploded across her tongue like nothing she had ever experienced. "Oh, Father," she whispered, "this is what food is supposed to be like. This is what I have been missing my whole life." She ate everything on her plate and asked for more. The doctors confirmed that all her vital signs were normal and her digestive system was functioning perfectly. For the first time in 20 years, Princess Lirale had eaten a complete satisfying meal without pain or illness. The royal court erupted in celebration. Nobles who had been skeptical now praised the humans as miracle workers. Servants spread the word throughout the palace that the princess was saved. Even the guards smiled as they watched their beloved princess laugh and eat with joy. King Zephon stood before the assembled court with tears in his eyes. "Today the humans have given us a gift beyond price. They have restored my daughter's health and brought joy back to our palace. How can we ever repay such kindness?" Jake stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we ask for nothing in return. Helping the princess has been reward enough for us. But if you truly wish to show gratitude, perhaps we could discuss ways our peoples could work together for mutual benefit." The king nodded. "Indeed, Captain. Tomorrow we will begin negotiations for a treaty between our peoples. But tonight we celebrate. Tonight my daughter lives again." The celebration lasted until dawn. Princess Lirale stayed awake longer than she had in years, filled with energy from her new diet. She asked Jake countless questions about Earth food and human culture. For the first time in her life, she was excited about the future. As the 3 suns of Valthara Prime rose over the crystal spires of the capital city, Jake looked out at the alien landscape and felt a deep satisfaction. They had come here as diplomats, but they had become healers. They had not only saved a life, but had opened the door to friendship between 2 very different races. Princess Lirale stood beside him on the palace balcony, watching the sunrise and eating an apple from their ship's stores. "Captain Morrison," she said softly, You have given me something I thought was impossible. You have given me hope. News of Princess Liralay's recovery spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, reporters from dozens of worlds were requesting interviews with Jake Morrison, the human who had saved the Valthari princess. Trade delegations began arriving at Earth's embassies asking about human food technology. Jake found himself famous in a way he had never wanted to be, but the real surprise came 3 weeks after the first successful meal when Princess Liralay made an announcement that shocked the entire Valthari court. She wanted to learn how to cook human food herself? Absolutely not, declared Lord Vexler at the emergency council meeting. Valthari nobility do not prepare food. It is beneath your station, princess. You have servants for such menial tasks. Princess Liralay stood before the assembled nobles with a strength and confidence that surprised everyone, including herself. The weeks of proper nutrition had transformed her from a weak invalid into a vibrant young woman. Her voice was clear and strong as she addressed the court. Honored counselors, I have spent my entire life unable to enjoy one of the most basic pleasures of existence. Now that I can finally eat real food, I want to understand it completely. I want to know how these miraculous meals are created. If that means working with my hands, then so be it. King Zifan watched his daughter with pride and amazement. This was not the frail girl who had sat silently at state dinners. This was a confident leader who knew her own mind. The food had not only healed her body, but had awakened her spirit. The princess will do as she wishes, the king declared. If she wants to learn human cooking methods, then we will arrange for proper instruction. Jake was delighted by the request but also nervous. Teaching an alien princess to cook was not something covered in diplomatic training. However, Princess Liralay proved to be an eager and talented student. They set up a teaching kitchen in one of the palace's smaller dining halls. Jake brought Lisa and Danny to help with the lessons while Dr. Carter continued monitoring the princess's health. The first lesson was basic knife skills and food safety. Princess Liralay held the human knife. Awkwardly at first. Her long, delicate fingers were not used to such tools. But she practiced patiently until she could slice vegetables with reasonable skill. She approached each lesson with the dedication of a scholar studying ancient texts. Why do you cut the onions so small? She asked as Danny demonstrated proper dicing technique. Small pieces cook faster and distribute flavor more evenly throughout the dish, Danny explained. Human cooking is about understanding how different ingredients work together to create harmony. The princess nodded thoughtfully. Like music or poetry, each element must complement the others to create something beautiful. Jake was impressed by how quickly she grasped the underlying principles of cooking. Within days, she was preparing simple dishes on her own. Her first successful scrambled eggs brought tears to her eyes. Her first loaf of bread made her dance around the kitchen with joy. Word of the cooking lessons scandalized some members of the court but fascinated others. Young nobles began requesting permission to observe the sessions. Soon Jake found himself teaching basic cooking skills to a dozen Valthari aristocrats. The cultural exchange went both ways. Princess Liralay taught Jake about Valthari agricultural methods that could revolutionize farming on human colony worlds. She showed him hydroponic systems that produced incredible yields with minimal resources. She explained genetic modification, techniques that could create new varieties of earth crops adapted to alien environments. Your people are masters of making food, she told Jake one day as they prepared a meal together. But my people are masters of growing it. If we combine our knowledge, we could feed entire worlds that are currently starving. The idea excited Jake tremendously. He imagined human farmers using Valthari growing techniques while Valthari colonies enjoyed earth crops adapted to their conditions. The possibilities seemed endless. Meanwhile, the original trade negotiations were proceeding better than anyone had hoped. King Zifan was so grateful for his daughter's recovery that he offered humanity unprecedented access to Valthari technology. What had started as a simple trade agreement was evolving into a comprehensive alliance. "The humans have proven themselves to be trustworthy friends," the king announced to the Galactic Council. "They came to us seeking profit but instead brought healing. They asked for trade agreements but offered something far more valuable. They gave us hope." Princess Liralay's transformation continued to amaze everyone who knew her. As her cooking skills improved, so did her confidence and leadership abilities. She began proposing agricultural reforms for the Valthari Empire. She suggested establishing cultural exchange programs with other races. She even volunteered to serve as an ambassador to the human colonies. "Father, I want to visit Earth," she announced one evening as they shared a meal she had prepared herself. "I want to see where this wonderful food comes from. I want to learn from human farmers and chefs and bring that knowledge back to benefit our people." King Zephan was hesitant to let his daughter travel so far from home, but he could see the determination in her eyes. This was not a request from a spoiled princess, but a proposal from a future leader who understood her responsibilities. "If you go, you will not go alone," he said finally. "You will take a full diplomatic escort and security detail, and Captain Morrison will accompany you as cultural advisor." Jake was honored by the assignment but also nervous. Taking an alien princess to Earth would create a media sensation. Security would be a nightmare. But he could see how much the trip meant to Princess Liralay, and he could not refuse. The preparations took months. Princess Liralay studied human history and culture with the same intensity she had once applied to cooking. She learned about Earth's diverse climates and agricultural regions. She memorized the names of major cities and famous landmarks, but most importantly, she continued to cook. Her skills improved dramatically as she experimented with different ingredients and techniques. She created fusion dishes that combined human recipes with Valthari spices and presentation styles. Her meals became works of art that impressed even the most skeptical courtiers. "The princess has become a master chef," Danny admitted to Jake one day. "She understands flavor combinations better than cooks with decades of experience. Her alien palate gives her insights that no human could have." The cooking lessons had an unexpected side effect. As Princess Liralay learned to prepare human food, she also began to understand human culture in ways that no amount of studying could have taught her. She grasped concepts like hospitality and sharing that were fundamental to human society. "Food is love," she told her father one evening. "When humans prepare meals for others, they are expressing care and friendship. This is why Captain Morrison's gift was so powerful. He was not just feeding my body, but nourishing my soul." King Zephan nodded with understanding. "The humans have taught us something valuable, daughter. Sometimes the greatest diplomacy happens not in council chambers, but around dinner tables." As the day approached for Princess Liralay's departure to Earth, the entire Valthari Empire watched with interest. Their princess had become a symbol of change and progress. Her recovery had sparked a renaissance of cultural exchange that was transforming their isolated society. Jake stood on the palace balcony looking out at the crystal spires one last time before their journey began. Princess Liralay joined him carrying a basket of ingredients for the ship's kitchen. "Are you nervous about visiting Earth, Princess?" he asked. She smiled the bright, confident smile that had replaced her former expression of pain and sadness. "I am excited, Captain Morrison. I am going to see the world that created such wonderful food and such kind people. How could I be anything but grateful for this opportunity?" As their ship lifted off from Valthara Prime carrying the princess toward her first visit to Earth, Jake reflected on how much had changed. They had come seeking trade agreements, but had found something much more valuable. They had discovered that the best diplomacy was not about treaties or technology, but about simple acts of kindness that touched the heart. 6 months had passed since Princess Liralay first tasted human bread, and her life had changed in ways no one could have imagined. She stood in the grand assembly hall of the Valthari Royal Palace, but now she was not the weak princess who once sat silently during state functions. She had become a powerful voice for progress and cooperation between species. The hall was filled with delegates from across the galaxy, who had come to witness the signing of the historic Human-Valthari Alliance. treaty. But more importantly, they had come to see the remarkable transformation of Princess Lirelei herself. She had gained weight and strength until she glowed with health and vitality. Her silver hair shone like starlight and her movements were graceful and confident. "Honored guests," she announced to the assembled crowd, "today we celebrate not just a treaty between two peoples, but the power of kindness to bridge any divide." When Captain Morrison shared simple bread with me, he was offering more than food. He was offering friendship and hope. Jake sat in the front row wearing his dress uniform and feeling somewhat overwhelmed by all the attention. Reporters from dozens of worlds had interviewed him about the princess's recovery. Scientists wanted to study human digestive compatibility with other species. Chefs begged for recipes and cooking techniques, but the real success was standing before them all. Princess Lirelei had not only recovered her health, but had become a leader in promoting interspecies cooperation. She had established the Galactic Culinary Institute, where chefs from different worlds learned to create foods that multiple species could enjoy. Her own unique physiology made her the perfect test subject for developing universal nutrition. "The princess has revolutionized how we think about food and diplomacy," whispered Ambassador Chun to Jake. 36 worlds have requested cooking exchanges with Earth because of her influence. She has turned eating into a tool for peace. King Zephan rose from his throne to address the assembly. The once stern ruler had softened considerably over the past months. Watching his daughter bloom into a confident leader had filled him with pride and joy he had never expected to feel. "My friends," he began. 6 months ago, my daughter was dying and my empire was isolated from the galaxy. Today she thrives and our borders are open to friends from many worlds. This change began with one human simple act of compassion. Captain Morrison saw suffering and chose to help rather than ignore it. The king gestured toward Jake. The captain could have focused only on trade negotiations and political advantage. Instead, he risked diplomatic relations to feed a hungry girl. That choice has led to benefits for all our peoples that no treaty could have achieved. Princess Lirelei had spent 3 months on Earth visiting farms and restaurants and cooking schools. She had learned techniques from master chefs and worked alongside agricultural scientists. But more importantly, she had experienced human culture firsthand and understood why sharing food was so central to their society. She returned to Velthara Prime with plans that amazed even her father. She proposed agricultural reforms that would increase food production across the empire. She suggested cultural exchange programs that would send young Valthari to study on other worlds. She even recommended changing ancient,